The shuttle trembled as it pushed through the upper haze of the distant world, and Mark braced himself against the rattling hull as the landing thrusters hummed beneath his boots. He had landed on many strange planets during his years as a field engineer, but this one carried an air of hushed mystery that felt older than any charted map. The air glowed with soft silver grains that drifted like floating dust, and the sky shimmered between lavender and pale gold. Mark stepped down the ramp and scanned the wide valley as the breeze rustled across tall crystal reeds that chimed like glasses. Mission was simple enough. At least on paper. A survey team had gone missing 2 weeks ago, and the last signal placed them somewhere in this valley near a cluster of structures that the explorers believed to be ruins. Mark was used to repairs and emergency extractions. Not long investigations, but he accepted the assignment with the steady calm that shaped his life as he walked. The reeds seemed to bend toward him, as though brushing him in greeting. He had been warned that the local life held strange electromagnetic properties. His boots left faint glimmers with each step, and he wondered if the missing team had been distracted by this place's enchanting wonder. Valley narrowed into a corridor lined by sharp ridges that sparkled like carved quartz. Mark spotted faint footprints, small and delicate, leading deeper into the shadows between the rocks. They did not match the boots of the lost surveyors. Curious but cautious, he followed them. The path opened into a hidden clearing where the glow of hovering spores illuminated a tangled structure of roots, vines, and smooth stone. Nestled inside the natural chamber was a small figure curled on the ground, its pale blue skin pulsed dimly as though threads of light ran beneath it. Mark approached slowly and knelt beside the figure. It was a child, at least. It looked like one wide silver eyes blinked up at him, shimmering with fear and hope. Mark spoke with a gentle tone, asking if the child was hurt, responded with soft melodic sounds that echoed lightly in the chamber. The meaning was unclear, but the shaking in its hands was unmistakable. Mark offered water and a nutrient bar. Though hesitant, the child accepted them. It moved closer, pressing its small hand against Mark's sleeve, as though sensing reassurance. Then the ground shook. A distant roar echoed through the valley. Mark turned sharply as bright lights pierced the shadows beyond the chamber. A towering creature emerged from the ridge. Its long limbs swept across the stone as it advanced with a guttural call that vibrated. In Mark's chest, the child's screamed. Instinct moved faster than thought. Mark scooped the child into his arms and shielded it behind his body. He raised his emergency barrier device, projecting a curved field. Just before a sweeping strike landed, the barrier crackled but held, pushing the creature back with a wave of rippling force. Mark retreated with the child as the creature howled and slammed against the shield again. The device strained with every impact. Mark gripped the trembling child close, whispering that everything would be all right. Moments later, a sudden blast of wind swept through the chamber, followed by a chorus of sharp chimes. Silhouettes descended from above, wrapped in flowing robes that shimmered like liquid moonlight. They moved with astonishing grace, surrounding the creature with synchronized gestures. A sphere of soft blue light formed around it, pulling it backward and forcing it into stillness. Mark stared as the robed figures touched down. Their tall, slender forms glowed faintly, and their expressions carried an air of authority. One stepped forward, eyes fixed on the child in Mark's arms. The figure spoke in a tone that felt like a deep harmonic chord reverberating in the air. Mark slowly lowered the child to the ground. The robed beings approached and examined it. With concern, they murmured in their melodic language, exchanging looks of relief. Then they turned to Mark. A figure stepped forward, taller than the rest, crowned with a subtle crest of silver filaments that swayed like soft feathers. Mark recognized the posture and the attention given by the others. This was the queen. Her gaze locked onto him with a profound intensity. She spoke, and though he could not understand the words, he felt the weight of gratitude in every sound. She extended her hands toward him in a ceremonial gesture, and the others echoed it. Mark held up his palms and tried to explain with simple motions that he had only protected the child because it was the right thing to do. But the queen took his hands gently and guided him toward a long pathway that spiraled upward through an opening in the ridge. He soon found himself standing in a radiant chamber made of smooth crystalline material. The walls glowed with shifting patterns that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of breaths. The queen gestured for him to sit. He hesitated, but complied. She called for attendants who brought shimmering devices that hummed with soft light. They scanned Mark with beams that swept across his body, projecting holographic patterns into the air. Mark tried to object politely, but the queen motioned for calm through the projections. He realized they were examining the event he had lived moments earlier. The hologram replayed the moment he shielded. The child, the queen, watched with deepening emotion. Attendants bowed and stepped back. The queen approached Mark and lifted his hand. She placed it over her own heart. The chamber brightened in response. Mark swallowed nervously. He did not know the customs, but it was clear she regarded his actions with immense significance. When he rose to leave, hoping to return to his shuttle and report the discovery, the queen stepped in front of him. Her eyes, though calm, held an unmistakable refusal. She spoke with quiet emphasis. 2 guards stepped behind Mark. Not threatening, but firm, the queen touched his wrist gently, then gestured to the projection. Once more Mark understood. She believed he was important, now not as a guest, not as an intruder, but as someone who had shown rare bravery in their eyes, someone they would not permit to depart easily over the next days. Mark lived among them in a grand chamber filled with circulating light that cast soft beams across the floor. The queen visited often, watching him with a warm but unyielding expression. She provided translators, who slowly learned pieces of his language through them. He learned that the child he protected was a royal heir. The creature he faced had been a wild native guardian, unpredictable and hostile. They had been searching for the missing heir for days. When they discovered the child with him, it confirmed their belief that he had saved a future leader. Mark tried repeatedly to ask for his release, insisting that he had duties and a team awaiting his return. The queen listened, but did not waver. She declared that his presence was essential to the harmony of their court and the security of the heir. His protection had imprinted a bond that they believed could not be broken. Despite this unexpected confinement, the people treated him with deep respect. He was given fine garments, woven from strands of luminous thread. He ate meals that tasted like sweet herbs and cool water. The heir, recovering well, often visited him, clinging to his side with trust. Yet every evening Mark sat near the chamber window, staring toward the valley where his shuttle rested. He knew that the rescue teams from his own faction would eventually arrive. He hoped they would interpret the silence as caution rather than harm. One morning, the queen summoned him to a towering hall with a vaulted ceiling of mirrored crystal. The entire council gathered in a wide circle around her. Mark stood at the center, feeling the weight of many eyes on him. The translator stepped forward and explained the ceremony. They intended to grant him a position as protector of the royal lineage. It was an honor beyond all honors, but it also meant he would remain with them permanently. Mark felt a deep tug in his chest. He looked at the council and then at the queen. He looked at the heir, who gazed at him with hopeful eyes. He explained through the translator that his people relied on him, that he belonged among them, that he could not abandon those who might be searching for him. The council murmured. The queen lowered her head in contemplation. The hall fell silent. Finally, she rose and approached him. She placed her hands on his shoulders and pressed her forehead lightly against his. It was an intimate gesture of respect and sorrow. Translator spoke with a trembling voice. The queen understood. She admired his loyalty to his own people, but she would not allow him to leave without ensuring the bond remained unbroken. She offered a compromise. He would be allowed to send a message confirming his safety, but he would stay until the heir completed a ritual of renewal, a process that required his presence. Only then could he depart. Mark weighed the choice. He knew it might take many days, perhaps longer, but he saw the trust in the heir's eyes and the sincerity in the queen's expression. He agreed. The days that followed blended into a rhythm. He accompanied the heir through crystalline gardens, where floating lights drifted like fireflies. He taught simple games and gestures from his homeworld. The heir giggled with delight and followed him everywhere. Queen watched from a distance with quiet satisfaction. Mark noticed how her posture softened whenever she saw the heir smiling. He understood then why she had refused to release him to her. His strength had become intertwined with her child's safety. The ritual of renewal began beneath a grand arch of silver vines. Mark stood beside the heir as attendants carried glowing vessels of harmonic energy. The air vibrated with a gentle hum that resonated through his bones at the height of the ceremony. The queen raised her arms and called out a melodic decree. The heir placed a small,